There is a specific kind of pain that no one ever prepares you for. It is not the pain of losing a stranger. It is not the pain of a bad day or a broken friendship. It is the kind of pain that reaches inside your chest, wraps itself around everything you trusted, everything you believed in, and pulls it all apart in one single moment. The kind of pain that only a sister can cause. My name is Claire. I am 31 years old. I grew up in a quiet house in Ohio with two parents who loved us, a backyard full of memories, and a sister named Dana who I thought was my best friend in the entire world. Dana is 3 years older than me. Growing up, she was everything I wanted to be. Smart, confident, the kind of girl who walked into a room and made everyone turn their heads. I used to follow her everywhere. I used to copy the way she laughed, the way she dressed, the way she carried herself like the world owed her something beautiful. I adored her, and for the longest time, I truly believed she felt the same way about me. We were close in the way that only sisters can be. We shared secrets at midnight. We cried together at sad movies. When our father passed away 5 years ago, we held each other in that hospital waiting room, and I remember whispering to her, "We still have each other. That's enough." She squeezed my hand and said, "Always." I believed her. With everything I had, I believed her. But what I didn't know that day, what I could have never imagined, was that even as she held my hand and said always, something was already shifting behind her eyes, something I wasn't able to see yet, something that would take me years to understand. The betrayal didn't happen all at once. That is what makes it so hard to talk about even now. It crept in slowly, quietly, dressed up in love and sisterhood and borrowed trust. It disguised itself so well that by the time I finally saw it clearly, it was almost too late. It started with a phone call I almost ignored. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March. I remember because I was sitting at my kitchen table grading student papers. I teach middle school English, and my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. I almost went back to my coffee and my red pen and my ordinary Tuesday. But something made me answer. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and the words she said rearranged everything I thought I knew about my life. "Miss Claire Harmon, this is Agent Reyes from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need to speak with you about a medical consent document that was filed under your name 6 months ago. Are you in a safe place to talk?" I remember setting down my pen very slowly. I remember the coffee going cold beside me. I remember saying, "I'm sorry, what document?" And I remember the silence that followed before Agent Reyes said something that made the floor feel like it was tilting beneath me. "Miss Harmon, according to our records, you signed a medical consent form authorizing the use of your biological tissue in a private medical research trial. The form carries your full legal signature, but our investigation suggests that you may not have been the one who signed it." I didn't speak for a long moment, because she was right. I had never signed anything like that. I had never participated in any medical trial. I had never given anyone permission to use my name, my identity, or anything connected to my body for any purpose whatsoever. But someone had, and deep in a place I didn't want to look, a place I had been carefully avoiding for months, I already knew who. The weeks that followed that phone call were the longest of my life. Agent Reyes explained it to me carefully, piece by piece, as though she understood that too much at once might shatter me completely. And honestly, she wasn't wrong to be careful. Dana had been struggling financially for over 2 years. I knew that much. She had gone through a messy divorce, lost her marketing job, and was living in an apartment she could barely afford. I had helped her, quietly, without making her feel small about it. I had sent her money 3 times. I had bought groceries and dropped them at her door. I had told her over and over again, "You are not alone in this. I am here." What I did not know was that Dana had found another way to solve her problems, a way that had nothing to do with honesty. She had gotten involved with a private medical research company, one that, as investigators would later discover, was operating on the edge of legality. They were recruiting participants for experimental tissue research. The compensation was significant, but recruiting willing participants was slow, so corners were being cut. Dana had access to my personal information. She always had. We were sisters. She knew my social security number because she had helped me file taxes once years ago. She knew my address, my date of birth, my medical history, because I had trusted her with all of it, the way you trust someone you love without thinking twice. She used every single piece of it. She forged my signature on a medical consent form. She listed me as a voluntary participant in their research program. She collected the compensation in a separate account. She sold my identity, my body, my name, my biological information, without ever asking me, without ever telling me, without ever once stopping to think about what it would mean if I found out. When Agent Reyes first laid it out for me, I sat in complete silence for nearly a full minute. Then I asked the only question that truly mattered to me. Did she know what she was doing? Agent Reyes paused. Then she said, "Yes, Miss Harmon, the evidence suggests she did." I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen and cried in a way I had not cried since the day we buried our father. Because it was not just the crime that broke me, it was the architecture of it, the planning, the quiet, deliberate decision to look at her little sister, the one who had sent her grocery money, who had held her hand in grief, who had believed in the word always, and choose to use her anyway. I called Dana that same evening. I needed to hear her voice. I needed to know if there was any version of this that made sense, any explanation I was missing. She answered on the second ring, warm as ever. "Hey, you, what's going on?" And I asked her very quietly, "Dana, did you sign my name on something, a medical form, months ago?" The silence that followed told me everything. It lasted 3 full seconds, and in those 3 seconds, I felt every memory we had ever shared flicker like a candle in a storm. Then she said, "Claire, I can explain," but I had already heard enough. I told her the FBI had called. I told her they knew. I told her that whatever explanation she had prepared, she should save it, because the people she needed to explain herself to were not me anymore. I hung up, and I did not call her back. I want to be honest with you about something. I did not set out to destroy my sister. I did not wake up every morning planning her downfall. I did not celebrate when things got difficult for her. That is not who I am. That has never been who I am. But I also made a decision, a quiet, firm, unshakable decision, that I would not protect her from the consequences of what she had chosen to do. That, I believe, was the strongest thing I have ever done. I cooperated fully with the FBI investigation. I provided every piece of documentation they asked for. I gave my statement clearly and completely. I did not minimize what happened. I did not soften the edges of it to make it easier for anyone, including myself, to process. The investigation took 4 months. Dana was arrested on a Thursday morning. I did not watch it happen. I did not want to. But I received a call from Agent Reyes shortly after, and she told me that Dana had been taken into custody, along with 2 executives from the medical company. The charges were serious: identity fraud, forgery of legal documents, and participation in an unauthorized medical research scheme. I sat with that information for a long time before I let myself feel anything at all. When the feeling finally came, it was not the satisfaction I thought it would be. It was something quieter, something that felt more like grief than victory. Because here is what no one tells you about betrayal from someone you love. The justice part does not erase the loss part. When Dana was arrested, I did not get my sister back. I did not get back the midnight conversations or the shared grief or the hand she held in that hospital waiting room. None of that returned. What I got instead was clarity. Dana entered a plea agreement. She avoided the longest possible sentence, but she did not avoid consequences. She faced fines, a period of supervised probation, and a permanent mark on her record that would follow her into every job application, every background check, and every professional door she tried to open from that point forward. The medical company was shut down entirely, their research data was seized, their license was revoked. Several people faced federal charges, and I, the woman's name had been stolen, whose trust had been quietly dismantled over years, I went back to my kitchen table, back to my student papers, back to my ordinary Tuesday life. Except I carried something new with me now. I carried the knowledge that I had survived the worst kind of betrayal, not from an enemy, not from a stranger, from the person I had once whispered "we still have each other" to in a hospital hallway. I have not spoken to Dana since that phone call. I do not know if I ever will. There are days I still miss her, the version of her I believed in, the version who said always and meant it. I allow myself to miss that version. I think that is healthy. I think pretending it never mattered would be its own kind of dishonesty. But I have also learned something that I want to carry forward for the rest of my life. Trust is not weakness. Loving people is not foolish. Being open and generous and willing to believe the best in someone, none of that makes you a target. None of that is your fault when someone chooses to abuse it. What happened to me was not a reflection of my naivety, it was a reflection of her choices. And the moment I truly understood that, the moment I stopped carrying her guilt as though it were mine, was the moment I finally felt free. If you are sitting somewhere right now holding a betrayal that someone else placed in your hands, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to put it down. You are allowed to cooperate with the truth. Walk away from the wreckage and rebuild your life without apology. You are allowed to love someone and still let justice find them. That is not cruelty. That is not revenge. That is simply choosing yourself after far too long of choosing everyone else. And that, more than anything, is where my story ends. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in the quiet, unshakable peace of a woman who finally knows her own worth.